Life's challenges and miracles may seem like polar opposites, but in this surprising episode with the Wednesday night group, we're going to find out the connection. Welcome back. I'm Gilla Ross, host of the Power Up podcast, where we share ideas that upgrade your everyday life.
Do you believe in miracles?
Of course.
Do you believe that God will make a miracle for you? Okay, now I don't know if there's anyone who, if you can think of something in your life that you really want to change, right? And kind of feels a little bit out of reach. Do you believe that God will miraculously change that for you? And the reason why I'm asking this question, I mean, we'll get into it a little bit more, but a few months ago, I was working with a client, and one of the things she was telling me was, I believe that God can do this or that, right? But I don't know if I believe that God will do it for me. Do you believe that God will do a miracle for you?
Yes, I also had several miracles in my life. And the question was I ready for it? And it was almost like God was waiting for me to be ready for it.
Oh, I like that. Sometimes you have to wait because we have to become ready. Let's take a step back. What's the Hebrew word for miracle? Anyone knows? A nes. Now, there's a fascinating idea in biblical Hebrew that whenever you have one word which has more than one meaning, then there's a connection between those different topics, those different concepts, right? So you have nes, which means miracle. Do we have any Hebrew speakers in the room?
Yes,
Couple?
in the computer.
What other words are connected to nes, to miracle?
What do you mean, like the same word?
Hebrew word.
Hebrew.
So the way the Hebrew language is made up is most words are made up of like root words, right? So any other words?
Well, it means also banner, doesn't it?
Yes, a nes also means a banner. What's the connection between a miracle? Well done. You definitely get a chocolate for that. That was very well done.
I'll eat your chocolate.
You know what? You don't even have to fight over it. There's enough for each of you to have one. Okay, nes means miracle, means banner. What's the connection between a miracle and a banner?
Miracle comes in your life, you want to like advertise it, like the power of God.
Fantastic. Yes, a miracle is kind of like a banner that advertises God's presence in the world, right? Because at the end of the day, what does a miracle show us? A miracle shows us that there is a higher power, right? This is something that we would expect to work in a certain way, and boom, it works a different way, and we're like, wow, there must be a God, right? God forbid someone has an illness, and they don't get a very good prognosis, and then they recover quickly. We say, wow, what a miracle, right? Because it shows that according to statistics and according to the way it should have worked, it shouldn't have happened like that, but God intervened. There's a higher power that intervened. So yes, you are right, Jackie, that the miracle is like a banner that kind of shows the world God's presence.
Yeah.
Let's make it a little bit more complicated, okay? There's a third Hebrew word, which is related to the word nes, which means miracle and banner. It's nisayon. Anyone has heard of the word?
Yes.
Yeah,
What does nisayon mean?
experience and also a test.
A test, a challenge, right? What on earth is the connection between a miracle, a banner, and a test, a challenge?
Speaking from my own life, that if you have a nisayon and you face that with God in mind, there can be a miracle.
Do you mean that when God gives us a miracle, God gives us a test, it's kind of impossible, and then if we pass it, it's a miracle?
No, what I mean is that it's how the person approaches the challenge. And if they want me to share something from my life.
If you're comfortable
Yeah.
with, yes.
So I was diagnosed with breast cancer 10 years ago. And it's a difficult path, you know, you have to go through chemo. I had my breast removed surgically. But I had a strong faith at the time, and I just, somewhere inside me, I knew that this was good. I was open to seeing what the miracles were within this time, and I found them. I found like people coming out of the woodwork that I didn't know would support me. I found like a wonderful doctor who I partnered with to call attention to BRCA1 and BRCA2 mutation in Jewish people. I wasn't married yet to my husband, and I saw the depth of his love for me because he went with me to every appointment and like was with me every step of the way. So what could have been seen as a you know, as a difficult thing brought much good into my life.
Wow.
That's
Very
amazing.
calm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
What's in it?
There's got to be a connection, right? Just like we see that clear connection between miracle and banner. Yeah, a miracle, oh, it shows the world that there's God, right? That's kind of like a banner. What's the connection? Let's leave the miracles to the side for a second. What's the connection between a test, a challenge that we go through as a person, and a banner? If we talk about it this way, in school, why do teachers test their kids in school? To see what they know, right? So the teacher can kind of figure out where exactly they are, right? Now, what does a test in life do for us? Why does God test us at all?
That helps us grow.
Right.
So what does that do?
Shows us what we're capable of.
More than just showing us what we're capable of.
It prepares
Achieve
us.
our potential.
It helps us achieve our potential, right? It helps us grow, right? As you said, it helps us grow. It shows us that this is who you are now, right? So it's kind of like a banner that shows ourselves, depending on how public the test is. I know Trudy was mentioning earlier, I don't know if anyone saw this video of this woman in Israel who lost her husband.
Amazing.
A very
kids.
Hadas. Hadas.
yes,
the-
Hadas. And right, you see a video, and she do you want to tell us about it, Trudy?
No, go on.
Oh, okay. So I actually didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched bits of it, and you could just see her faith and her resilience and her strength of character. And you watch a video like that, and you're like, wow, right? Like, this is the power of a human, right? Like, this is, you know, a woman can lose her husband and put out a video like that. Like, it shows you, you know, incredible. It shows you who that person is, and it shows you what people are capable of. And I think Jackie,
Women.
if I can borrow your story for a second, the same thing, you know, someone who's able to sit in a group and say, I had that experience of breast cancer, and I saw miracles that showed for me. I'm listening to that, and that's very inspiring. That's like, wow, that's an incredible thing. So do you see how the test is, you know, it brings out our potential, which is kind of like a banner, which kind of advertises to ourselves, people that we know, the people that love us, and sometimes to the world, who we are. Where does the miracle fit into all of that? And let me ask you the question this way. When someone has a test and they pass that test, is it a miracle?
Not necessarily, it depends on the person.
Not necessarily, and yes.
Yes.
Yeah, every test is a
They
miracle.
pass the test. If they pass the test, it's a miracle. Okay.
Look at Abraham with the 10 test.
Yes, no, I love this. This is where we start, like, you know, Pick your side. This is good. This is good.
I mean, Abraham had 10
If
tests.
you work hard and pass the test, it's not a miracle. But if you didn't work well and still pass the test, that's a miracle.
I specifically want to focus on life tests. I'm sure all of us can think of a test that you went through in life, right? And it's interesting because how you define success is a whole nother discussion, right? But think of a test and something that you got through. Is it a miracle if God gives you a test? I don't know what it is. Difficult relationship, health issue, financial stress, whatever it is. Is it impossible to pass? Is it a miracle if you pass that test?
Yes.
I maintain not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
I think it's a miracle.
You think it's a miracle?
I think so too.
Okay. So Cheryl's very easy, because if you think it's a miracle, well, actually it's not so easy, because I've got a question for you, which is going to make it a little bit more complex. If you think it's a miracle, that's a connection, right? Miracle, God gives you a test, it's impossible, you pass, it's a miracle. Hold on a second. Why is God giving me something impossible to do?
Almost impossible.
Right?
It's
So
impossible
if,
in your eyes, that doesn't mean it's impossible.
well, for it to be a miracle, it has to be impossible, not just in our eyes. So if we go with Cheryl and whoever's on Cheryl's team and say that it's a miracle, we're left with a question: why would God give me something impossible to do? Why? Why give us an impossible task? If we're with Jackie, it's not necessarily a miracle. Then we're left with the question of what's the connection between miracle and test? Okay? Keep those questions in mind. And let me tell you let's try and figure it out. Okay? So tests are given to us in order, as we said before, to develop our potential. In fact, Masilat Yesharim, which is Pathway of the Just, tells us that it tells us that we have three purposes in life. One of the purposes in life is to withstand tests, right?
What?
He's telling us that a third of the reason that we are put into this world is just to be tested, right? So that's a pretty big concept, right? It's not just that it happens to be that we get tested, but it's a huge part of what we are here in this world for, right? And we said before that the test is there to bring out our hidden potential, right? We had it before. It was potential. You know, I had the potential to do this thing. God tests me, and then it's actuality. I've actualized my potential.
Sorry.
What's written?
You said there's three things.
Masilat Yesharim. So it's a book that's written Pathway of the Just, and it talks. No, is it? Yeah, Masilat Yesharim, and it talks about developing ourselves and becoming better people, basically, right? This is one of the three things we're in this world for. Is the purpose of that we're here for is to withstand tests, right?
I don't understand that word.
Sorry.
The last phrase I didn't get, sorry.
We're here in this world to overcome challenges. One of the reasons that we're in this world to do good, etc. But one of the reasons we're in this world is to overcome challenges. I don't know about you, but when I first heard this concept, I thought like, wow, you know, you think we're in this world to do good, to whatever, but one of the reasons we're actually in this world is to overcome the challenges that God sends us, right? Which is it's important to understand the whole concept of challenges, is if that's one of the reasons why we're actually here. Okay, so according to what we've said so far, we're leaning slightly more towards Jackie, right? Because what we understand from here is that we have a potential, but it's latent, right? It hasn't yet come up. God tests us, and then what was there potentially becomes reality, right? Which is all very nice, and we understand the banner connection, but we're still left with the question of why is it a miracle? Okay, so let's keep that question, and I want to talk to you about King David. Okay, King David. So the Talmud tells us that King David asks God, he says to God, he says to God, why don't we say Elokei David, right? Just like we say when we say the prayers, we say Elokei Abraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, God of Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac and Jacob, right? Why don't we say Elokei David? Now, what's he asking? Right? What's he asking? He's asking. We have to understand something about King David. King David was the king, right? Now, in Jewish thought, the king is someone who brings God's presence into the world, right? The king is a position, obviously, of power and responsibility, but it's really the leader of the Jewish people and who brings God's presence into this world, right? So when King David is asking the question, why is my name not up there with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? He's not asking like, hold on a second, I should be up there on that wall of fame. What he's asking is, where did I fall short, right? Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they were the forefathers, and they achieved what they needed to achieve so that their name was attached to God's name, right? God's name is attached to their name. So King David is asking, what do I need to do that my name can be attached to your name, God? So God tells him, the reason why their names are attached to God's name is because they were tested and they passed. So King David says, fine, test me. You're laughing because I think you know the end of the story, right? What happens is Hashem says, okay, fine, I'll test you. He's tested and he fails. Right? Now, the story was with David and Bathsheba. It's another discussion. What exactly happened there? That the Talmud goes backwards and forwards exactly what happened there. But what's the meaning of the story, right? Like, let's try and put it apart. Like, where, God says to him, they were tested and they passed. He says, test me, and then he fails. Where did he fail? We're told, do you know where he failed? Do you know where he failed? Yes.
The end of his life?
In this story.
Oh, in which?
In the story of the Talmud that I just said.
Bathsheba's?
I don't know.
That he thought that he can overcome the challenge without miracle, without God.
By asking for a test, right? You're right, Elena. Why? Who asked for a test?
Continue person.
Controversy. Recently, I moved to Denver, Colorado. Been driving in the UK, Canada, wherever for 20 years, I think, ish, right? Moved to America, and they don't take UK license, driver's license, right? So you have to go through the whole thing. So I had to do the written test and the permits and the driver's test, right? Like, at what point do you book the driver's test?
When you're confident that you'll pass it.
When you're confident that you're going to pass, right? So this is the first place where King David failed, right? Is that Hashem said why they merited, why they connected with me so strongly that our names are attached was because they passed the test. King David said, so test me. He wasn't thinking, test me because I'm going to fail. He was thinking, great, test me so I can pass and I can get closer to you. His intentions were 100% right, but the failing there, right? The slight failing there was that he had that confidence to ask for a test, because a real test is something that feels impossible. Can anyone relate to that? Can anyone relate to a moment in time where you were given something and you feel like, can't do this? God, I don't know. I don't know what you want, but I can't. Right? Yes. I'm seeing all the heads nodding around the thing. Now, what Judaism teaches us is that feeling of I can't is accurate, right? Because a real test is impossible, right? A person feels it's too much for me. I can't do this. I don't know what you want from me. All those things that are going through this, I can't do this, it's too hard, it's too much, etc. Whatever it is, right? If it's taking the next step in our Jewish journey, whether it's, Shabbat, taking the next step in Shabbat, taking the next step in kosher, taking the next step in the way we treat other people, whether it's a personal situation that we're going through, we feel like, can't do it. Too hard for me, too hard for me. And it is too hard for us. It is impossible. Thank you all for coming. Any questions?
Well, what if you partner with them?
Okay, so you're jumping ahead.
Um,
I was waiting for someone to ask me, so why? What's the point? Why would God give us something impossible to do, right? Right? And Trudy told us exactly, right? What is a real test? And I think, Gabriella told us that earlier. What does a real test invite us to do? It invites us to do two things. It invites us to partner with God, and it invites us to put all our efforts in, right? So that when we have that feeling of I can't, it's too hard for me, what we have to finish that sentence with, I can't do this on my own. It's too hard for me to do on my own. But when a person puts in all that effort and they trust God, God helps them get through it. And the miracle therein is the miracle. Why? Because before the person had that test, they couldn't do it. It was impossible. They were tested. It's still impossible. They did two things. They put all their efforts in, and they connected to God. They trusted God, and then they get through it. It becomes possible. It becomes who they are, right? Because therein lies the miracle. Therein lies the connection between a miracle, a challenge, and a miracle. A challenge invites us to create a miracle, right? And what is the miracle? The miracle is who we become, right? What we go through as a result of it and who we become. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever been through something and you look right. And you look back and you're like, how did I get through that? The person you are now is not the same person, which, if you think about it, is incredible, because it basically means that our potential is unlimited, right? Because what this is teaching us is, and I'll show you where we learn this from, is that not that a test comes to develop our potential. That's not a real test. Yeah, there are situations that bring out our potential, but a real test goes beyond our potential. I'll give you an example, an analogy, right? Imagine there's a kid that's jumping over fences, right? So jumps over fences, gets to the tallest fence in the field and can't jump over it. It's just too high, right? What would you say? It's too high, you can't do it. All of a sudden he looks around and he sees there's a bull charging towards him, right? What happens?
He jumps over.
He manages to jump over, right? Because he was tested. What was possible before, what was impossible before, suddenly became possible. And that's how we kind of have to think about the challenges in our life. It's the same thing. Yes, I could do this, this is how much I can do. But then the test comes and we can do more. And as a result of it, we become more capable, which means that our potential is unlimited. Because it's not that the test is bringing out our potential, but that the test is, together with the miracle that happens when we attach ourselves to God, is what builds us into that new person. And that's what God was telling King David. You want to know why their names are attached to mine is because when Abraham was tested, right, he attached himself to God, right? How could it be that a human being who waited so long for his child had the superhuman strength to be prepared to give that child up, right? Like, if you look at any of his tests, like they're not, it's not possible, right? It's not, and it wasn't possible, but because he attached himself to God, right, and he put all the effort in, he became a vehicle for showing the miracle, right? There's another story that's told in the Talmud, right? That there was a what happens is there was a what happens? Oh, I think this is the story. So apologies if it's wrong. Shimon ben Shattach had a donkey, right? And what happens is that the donkey was lost, and right, what happened was the donkey was lost. He came back with a massive wagon full of gold coins, right? And Shimon ben Shattach went and found the owner of the lost money and returned it. And at that point, the owner, who was not a Jewish person, said, "Praised be the God of Shimon ben Shattach." Why? Why is he praised? Why doesn't he just praise Shimon ben Shattach? If you hear someone that does something amazing, why don't you just praise him? Why is he praising the God of Shimon ben Shattach?
Because he created him.
God helped him. God made it happen. It wasn't him doing it himself.
I think he was doing
Close, very,
Okay.
very close.
the
What does it show when someone overcomes the natural temptation to do something good?
That they're partnered with God.
They're part, right? When I watched this video, right, of this woman who's talking about losing her husband, the thing that came to mind is, wow, such faith, right?
light.
Because
Light.
we can't, someone on their own doesn't have that sort of faith. It shows that they are connected to a higher power, right? So that's why he sees Shimon ben Shattach doing this incredible thing, and he says, "Praise be his God," right? Because it shows the fact that you're able to overcome your natural temptation and do something so phenomenally good shows that you're connected to a higher reality. So what was David's mistake was that he forgot for a second, or I don't know, forgot is the wrong word, right? But he thought, I can do this, right? Test me and I'll do it. But the whole point of a test is that you feel like I can't do it, right? So why would you ask for something that you can't do, right? And then you're in that situation. We don't ask for tests. In fact, every day in the prayers, we ask God to not put us in the hand of a test. Why? For this very reason. Because a real test feels impossible, right? And it takes superhuman strength, and it does take that superhuman connection to God to help us get through it. Right now, in fact, that's why it says there's a very interesting again from the Gemara, the Talmud that talks about different types of people, right? If someone tells you that I worked very hard and I didn't achieve, don't believe them, right? If someone tells you I didn't work and I achieved, don't believe them, right? If someone tells you like, oh, I didn't study at all for that test and I got full marks, don't believe them, right? If someone tells you I worked and I didn't get anything from it, don't believe them, right? If someone tells you I worked and I achieved, believe them, right? And the point of the Gemara, the Talmud, is basically saying that if you work, you achieve, right? Now the language is very interesting because it says yogati or masati. Someone who says I searched and I what is a if anyone's ever been to Israel, what's a Messiah?
To find.
Messiah?
Yeah.
Fine.
It's a bargain.
It's a bargain, right? And I think it's actually,
Mm.
I think it's actually, is it a Hebrew word or a Yiddish?
I thought it was,
Yes.
Could be it's Yiddish as well, but I think it comes from the word matzah, right? But what's a bargain?
something you get for less than it should normally cost.
Then less than you expect it to cost, right?
Right.
It's kind of like an unexpected find, right? You go into the store and you're expecting to pay $10 for the rogalach and they're on sale for $1. Wow, it's a bargain, right? I'll take one, right? It's an unexpected find. Now the language of the Gemara is very strange because it's saying if someone tells you they searched you're going to below someone searched and they didn't find, don't believe them. If someone tells you I didn't search and I found, don't believe them. But someone tells you I searched and I found, but 1 minute, if you're searching, it shouldn't be a bargain. It should be something that you find, right? You go into the store, for example, you look on the bread aisle, you find a loaf of bread. You wouldn't call it a bargain for the regular price. You wouldn't call it a bargain. You'd just find it. Okay, great. I found what I wanted to find. Why is it calling it a matzia? Why is it calling it like kind of like an unexpected find, like a bargain? Let's see if we can figure this out.
What does it say?
Connected to what we just learned up to.
So what does it say? Yagati v'matzati? Is that what you said?
Yes, Yogati or Mutsasi ta'amin. Believe him. Okay.
Ta-
Anyone can guess why would it be an unexpected find? It's exactly
Because
this.
by itself,
Sorry?
person will not find it. It's no, he found it with the help of God. Which
Exactly,
is,
exactly. Because you put your effort in, which you have to, but the result is bigger, right? The result is bigger than what you expected to find, right? So you know what? I'm gonna put my effort in, I'm gonna try and do whatever I need to do to get through this challenge. But then we get through it and it's like, wow, how did I get through that? Right? That's the matzia, that's the part of like, yes, I put the effort in, but the results of it is bigger than what I would expect it to do because it was impossible, right? But because we did that two-part process, that attaching ourselves to God, and then just taking that leap, right? That effort in we end up with a matzia, with a bargain, with something that is bigger than it should be. And this is kind of the prayer that we have, right? Because we pray that we pray to God every day. Please don't test us, right? And yet we are tested. Everyone gets tested. It's one of the 3 reasons we're in this world for. And the prayer is, God, yes, it feels impossible. Maybe it is impossible. But if you're seen fit to test me with it, then I pray to you that you'll help me get through it. And then we have to put in all our efforts into it, right? So let's go back to, for example, the application, right? We're told with Abraham, right? Abraham and the level of Abraham's test is incredible, right? Because we think about it from a human perspective, right? Here is a father who prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed for years and years and years and years to have this child, right? He finally has this child. Like emotionally, that's a huge challenge. Intellectually, here is a person who's built up this empire, this career over years and years and years, teaching people that what? Jews don't believe in human sacrifices. Right? The Midrash, the story of the idol, where he tells the idol God doesn't want sacrifices, right? That's what it's based on, right? He tells everyone, he teaches the world, as Jews, we don't believe in human sacrifices, and we don't believe in human sacrifices, and he knows that we don't believe in human sacrifices, and then he has to overcome that emotional hurdle, that intellectual hurdle, that life work hurdle that he's put all his life work into it. Incredible, right? And what are we told afterwards is that the ashes of Yitzhak, right? We have the person Yitzhak, Isaac, was transcendence, right? He was not even of this physical world, right? After going through what he went through with the sacrifice, right? A person who lives in this world but is of a spiritual nature, right? That is the result of a test, right? It is transcendence, right? It is transcendence. If you look through, and if I can, again, Jackie, borrow your which you so kindly shared with us, like going through what you went through is transcendence, right? When you come through that, it's bigger than all the effort that we put in, and that's what we have to know about challenges and tests that God gives us in life, is that it's not just there to bring out our potential. Yes, it brings out our potential, but really it leads to transcendence, right? That's the miracle of it, right? The miracle of a test is that it leads to transcendence. And what we have to do is remember this, and remember that if it feels impossible, it probably is impossible on our own. And we're invited to connect to God and keep putting in the effort so that we can bring that miracle into our lives, into the world, and transcend ourselves. Any questions, any thoughts, any comments?
Wow.
I think I have a comment.
Yeah, please.
Well, we talked about the steps, like in the process. I think there's another step that comes before the other two, which is surrender.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think sometimes that is the big part of the surrendering, and to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to me the surrendering is surrendering to God, right?
Yeah.
I have this plan, God, of how I want my life to run. Thank you. Yeah.
There's no way I can do this. I give up. Help me.
Yes, and I give up, help me, right? It's
Yeah.
it's not just like give up, I give up, help me. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it has to be done in combination, 100%. That's a good point. Thank you.
A partnership. Partnership.
A partnership. Exactly. Yes. Yes. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Yes.
Well,
Please go ahead.
I'm kind of stuck about this, about King David, because he went through such hardship and look what he brought us, the Psalms. So I guess what I'm mixed up about is, what's he thinking? He's not up there with, our forefathers and foremothers, let's say. And yet he doesn't realize the impact he's making on the Jewish people, which is huge. I think it's just right up there. So, and he had I feel like he had a lot of tests, and he was constantly having to display his faith in Hashem, and he constantly was asking Hashem to be with him.
100%. If you read through the Psalms, his
Right.
name, in fact, actually says that, because his name is Dalet Vav Dalet, right? Now Dalet is like someone who's poor, right? Someone who empties, as you talk about surrender, someone who empties themselves out of ego. Vav signifies the connection between David and King and God. And Dalet is again emptying themselves, surrendering, emptying themselves out of ego. That's who he was. That the epitome of who he was that person who surrendered his ego and connected to God, right? I think the question that he was asking was, at the end of the day, we say in the prayers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. And he was saying, what do I need to do that it will be God of David as well? What is that kind of, what's missing in my service of you, God, that I can do? And what he brought to the Jewish people, you're right. Like the Tehillim, it's talk about his life is full of challenges, right? Full of challenges. And I don't know the exact history and when the story took place in his life, but he was challenged and tested again and again with the battles with King Saul, with his son Absalom, like full. And what do we have as a result of all those tests? We have the book that carries us through those challenges, right? The book of Tehillim, the songs, the psalms, the praises. So 100%, and I think we always have to bear in mind, and I appreciate you bringing this up, whenever we talk about the lives of our our forefathers, our ancestors, right? The biblical personalities, they were living on such a high level connecting with God. Their feeling would be beyond our greatest success, right? Beyond, right? But it's there, but the Torah picks it apart. The Torah talks about them, and we're told God is medactic and sadiqim. He's very particular. Why? To teach us, right? It's there to teach us. So again, this story is: do we understand what it means? That King David understood tests better than any of us do, right? But on some tiny minuscule level, there was a little bit missing in the fact that he asked for a test, right? So I think for most of us, and maybe this is just my thoughts, but if we were going to say, God, please don't give me a test, it wouldn't be because whatever, it would be because please don't make me any more uncomfortable than I already am, right? Whereas for King David, he was in that level where he was probably saying that I'm prepared to go all the way for you. But even that was a tiny, tiny bit missing.
Thank you for taking the time to listen. If you enjoyed this episode, you'll love my new book, Living Beautifully, available on my website, Amazon, or any good Jewish bookstore. And please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. Thank you and have a wonderful day.